I said, I feel like Moses in reverse. He says, what do you mean? I says, well, the country, this is like a country club. This is like the promised land. Fort Hood is the desert.
Why did they move you?
Because they didn't have a chaplain at Fort Hood.
Oh.
And the fellow who was at Fort Hood, just to give you an idea, I'll tell you about the Haredi yeshivas. Chaim Berlin is a frum yeshiva, quote unquote. No college, just study. This guy, who was a chaplain, would drive on Shabbos. He told them a lie that he needs a house on post because he can't walk. Because when I came and I requested a house on post, they didn't want to give it to me because they said, they figured that, I'll tell you about that. So to make a long story shorter, they asked him to leave the military. Because this guy would travel on Saturdays, Shabbos, to Dallas, which was about 170 miles away from Fort Hood, and charge the boys $3 or $4 each. This is to go to the dance that was at the Chef's Community Center on Saturday night. This is a Maisa Shahoya. So anyway, so that was now, I'm now traveling to Fort Hood. On the way, Joshua ate some barbecue potato chips and threw up. I remember that. And then there was something wrong. I don't know. That didn't do it. What did it was he had a very bad fever. So I remember when we got to the hospital, his mother takes him in, and the doctors, first thing, what's your husband's rank? What does that got to do with anything? She says, my son is my son. He needs to be checked. And she made a real fuss, and thank God he was okay. But that was okay. Now Fort Hood. So at Fort Hood, I'll just go fast. At Fort Hood, the first thing that I got done was a sukkah. The post chaplain was playing a game with me. He told me I should give him the plans how to make a sukkah, and I did. And he came back. It's not in the budget. Request refused. And I knew that he knew in advance that he was going to refuse it because the budget was made. The budget is made in April. So why did he play a game? So I was very, very depressed. So I went to visit a Jewish group of guys because I had a list of all the Jewish boys, just to give you an understanding what a military for those who went in the army. Fort Hood had 2 armored divisions. Each armored division is 18,000 soldiers. 36,000 soldiers on one post. Now, so it ends up, you tell me if this is hashkacha. I'm going to the 527th Army Engineer Battalion. Guess what an Army engineers do? They build bridges, they build all kinds of things. So I'm telling them, why did I come to visit? So I told them I want to see the Jewish boys, and I tell the boys about the fact that we have to have a holiday for Sukkot, and we can't have a Sukkah, and etc. Not that anybody's from, but this was for the morale. So they take me to see the first sergeant, and then I learned the lesson. The first sergeant is more important than the officers. And then later in the civilian life, the secretary is more important sometimes than the mefakech inside. True. So the guy says to me, okay, we'll build it. Takes me to the seat of lieutenant colonel. I says, how can you build it? The post chaplain said there's no budget. He says, don't you realize this is the Army engineers on the Sakravit? We build everything. I'll build it and put it in the work order, camouflage netting for an artillery piece. and that's how we had a sukkah. So I paid the guys who did it what's called bakshish. 4 bottles of kosher wine. Then I realized I made a mistake after they left. They made it like this. Well, according to the halacha, you can't have that way. It has to be open with slats. So I had to take them back to take off every other kerish. So, okay, that cost me another 4 bottles of wine. But I want you to know that, and this is the post chaplain that belonged to the Jewish guys. So the post chaplain started playing games. He wanted to make it that it should be Christian also. I said, sir, we have to have it open all week like for Jews in case somebody wants to come and meditate. Now you know Jews don't come into shul to meditate. But nonetheless, I thought it was important that we should have it. Now, then comes Pesach. For Pesach, we had 8 days, 3 meals a day, 400 somebody people every day eating meals. The whole thing was kosher and everything, and I'm not going to get into all the details. Now, time
but there
to
was
leave.
a budget for that?
By this time, the post chaplain realized that I invited the 2 generals, 1st Armored Division, 2-star, 2nd Armored Division, 2-star, and his assistants. They came to the sukkah party that we had for the boys. And so then the post chaplain gets comment like this. The general says, Wilbur, his name was Wilbur K. Anderson. Wilbur, you are really taking care of your Jewish troops. I'm proud of you.
Good, he barks a lot.
Wilbur. See? So Wilbur realized that it's to his benefit to take care of the Jewish boys. So when it came time for Pesach, I was appointed a mess officer, meaning that all actually orders were written. Captain Rubin is now a mess officer. So in January, they work everything out 3 months in advance. So in January, I met with all the sergeants and who are preparing the meals. And I sit down with them and I say, gentlemen, or they asked me why I'm there, because I was the only officer there. They wouldn't understand what I'm doing there. So I said, I'm here for the Jewish holiday of Passover. Some of you may know what that is, but it's a holiday where we can't eat this and that in the Talmud Kosher. They didn't understand a word. I said, let me explain what I need. I said, I have on, I think it was April 19th, it was April 19th, in 1964 or 5. So I said, I have 400 portions of steak. I'm authorized 400 portions of chicken. And I list all the nice stuff. I said, I would like to trade. I want to give it away. They looked at me like I was nuts. And I said, but I'd like to have eggs. I need extra vegetables, extra lettuce, extra onions. They thought it was the best thing that ever happened to them because they're getting all this good stuff, and what are they giving me? I went to the hospital and got sheets for the tablecloths. You know when they give out pills in the hospital? They put it in a little plastic thing. So that was for the cups for the alba kosa. And the hardest thing was Shvoch HaMotzcha Goyim when I have the 2 generals sitting there. See, and you have to say it because that's part of the Agora. So I explained it. That it refers to the communists. And for those who have mistreated the Jews through the centuries. Okay, so it was all right. Then the chaplain says to me, he'd like to take a box of matzah to use it on Easter Sunday for the wafers when they have the communion. How can I tell him no? And the general's wife told me, Jewish crackers, can she have a box? So what the heck, okay, anyway. Next. Now we come, chapter 2. Chapter 2 is Moshe. Moshe came into the world in a place called Montgomery, Alabama. In Montgomery, Alabama, we had...
How did the yeshiva send you to Montgomery of all places?
They needed a rabbi there. And the rabbi before had been Orthodox. Rabbi Aaron Barrow, who lives now here, his wife Pearl